A wild wolf dug the ground for hours. When a hunter saw what she was protecting, he broke down in tears. The crisp autumn air carried whispers of change through the Silver Creek forest, as Logan Carter stood at his cabin's porch, watching the morning mist dance between ancient trees. His weathered hands absently traced the wooden railing, each groove telling stories of the years he'd spent in these mountains, far from the chaos of city life. The transition hadn't been easy. Trading his successful corporate career for solitude had raised more than a few eyebrows among his former colleagues. But here, surrounded by nature's raw beauty, he'd found something that no corner office could provide: peace. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching us from. Stay tuned. Or at least that's what he'd thought until recently. Lately, a growing unease had been gnawing at his conscience. Every hunting expedition, once a source of pride and accomplishment, now left him with a bitter aftertaste. The weight of his rifle felt heavier with each passing day, and the thrill of the hunt had slowly transformed into something else entirely. A questioning he couldn't quite silence. The sharp ring of his satellite phone cut through his contemplation like a knife. Few people had this number, and fewer still would call at such an early hour. The name flashing on the screen made him straighten. Rachel Green, the local ranger who'd helped him navigate his first years in the wilderness. "Logan?" Her voice carried an urgency that immediately put him on alert. "I need your expertise on something unusual." One of the farmers reported strange behavior from a wolf near the old Thompson property. His interest piqued. Strange how? "She's been digging for hours, refusing to leave the spot even when scared away." "It's not normal behavior, Logan. Something's wrong." Logan's mind raced through possibilities. Wolves were intelligent, purposeful creatures. If one was acting out of character, there had to be a reason. "Have you seen it yourself?" "Not yet. I'm headed there now, but you're closer. Could you check it out? The farmer's worried it might be sick." Logan glanced at his rifle, hanging above the fireplace. For the first time in years, he left it there, opting instead for his camera and field gear. "Send me the coordinates." "I'll be there in 20. The drive through the winding forest roads gave him time to think. In all his years as a hunter, he'd observed countless wolves. Their behaviors, their patterns, their social structures, all followed nature's carefully orchestrated dance. A lone wolf acting erratically didn't fit the script. As he approached the location, the morning fog had lifted, revealing a clearing bathed in autumn sunlight. He parked his truck at a distance, knowing better than to announce his presence too boldly. The sounds of desperate digging reached his ears before he spotted the source. There she was, a magnificent female wolf, her silver-gray coat dulled by dirt and exhaustion. Her powerful paws worked tirelessly at the earth, sending sprays of soil flying behind her. What struck Logan most weren't her actions, but her eyes. They held a desperate intelligence that seemed to pierce right through him. Logan kept his distance, using his binoculars to observe. The wolf's behavior wasn't random. There was purpose in every movement, every pause to listen, every frantic return to digging. She was trying to reach something important enough to override her natural caution around humans. His satellite phone vibrated, Rachel texting to say she was 10 minutes out. Logan texted back quickly, "Wait when you arrive." "Something's going on here." The wolf's ears perked at the sound of his movement, and for a moment their eyes met. Logan had stared down many predators in his life, but this was different. There was no aggression in her gaze, no challenge. Instead, he saw something that shook him to his core, a plea for help. Years of hunting had taught Logan to read the forest's signs, to understand its language. But now, watching this magnificent creature in her desperate endeavor, he realized there was so much more to learn. The forest was speaking to him in a new voice, one that challenged everything he thought he knew about the relationship between humans and wild animals. A faint whimper from below the ground changed everything. The wolf's digging became more frantic, and suddenly Logan understood. This wasn't just about one wolf's strange behavior, it was about maternal instinct, about life itself, hanging in the balance. As he watched her continue her desperate effort, Logan felt the last pieces of his old identity as a hunter begin to crack and shift. Rachel's truck was approaching in the distance, but Logan barely registered the sound. His mind was already racing with plans, calculations, and a growing certainty that what happened next would change not just this day, but the entire course of his life in these mountains. The wolf paused again, looking directly at him, and in that moment, Logan made a decision that would set in motion events he could never have anticipated. The air grew heavy with anticipation as Logan cautiously approached the digging site. The wolf's ears twitched at his movement, but surprisingly, she didn't retreat. Instead, she continued her desperate excavation, throwing occasional glances in his direction that seemed more pleading than threatening. Years of experience had taught Logan to read animal behavior, but this was unlike anything he'd encountered before. Rachel's arrival added another layer of tension to the scene. She stepped out of her ranger vehicle, equipment in hand, but Logan gestured for her to stay back. "There's something different about this situation," he called out softly, keeping his eyes fixed on the wolf. "She's not just digging randomly, she's trying to reach something." The wolf's coat, once magnificent, was now matted with mud and debris. Her movements, though tired, carried an urgency that spoke of something more than mere instinct. Every few minutes, she would pause, press her ear to the ground, and whimper before resuming her frantic digging with renewed vigor. "Logan, this isn't safe," Rachel warned, her professional training evident in her concerned tone. "If she's acting this erratically, we need to tranquilize her and get her checked out." She reached for her tranquilizer gun, but Logan shook his head firmly. "Wait," he insisted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Look at her eyes, Rachel. This isn't aggression or illness. This is—" He paused, searching for the right words. "This is desperation. Pure maternal desperation." As if confirming his assessment, a faint sound emerged from beneath the disturbed earth, a weak, muffled cry that made the wolf's ears perk up instantly. The sound transformed her entire demeanor. Her digging became more focused, more determined, yet somehow more careful. Logan's mind raced through his years of experience in these mountains. The spring rains had been particularly heavy this year, causing several minor landslides throughout the region. The soil beneath their feet was still unstable in many areas, and suddenly the pieces began falling into place. "Rachel," he called out, his voice steady but urgent, "bring me your shovel and the emergency kit from your truck. I think I know what's happening here." The ranger hesitated, her training warring with trust in Logan's judgment. Finally, she nodded, returning moments later with the requested items. Logan slowly approached the dig site, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. The wolf watched him intently, but didn't move to attack or retreat. As he got closer, the extent of the situation became clear. The ground had partially collapsed, revealing what appeared to be an entrance to a den. The wolf had been trying to dig through the packed earth that had sealed off her pups inside. The thought of the tiny lives trapped beneath the soil made Logan's chest tighten with an unfamiliar emotion. The wolf's behavior shifted as Logan approached with the shovel. She backed away slightly, but remained close, her eyes never leaving his hands. It was as if she understood that help had finally arrived, even if it came in an unexpected form. The trust she showed, however tentative, struck Logan deeply. Rachel watched from a safe distance, her tranquilizer gun ready but lowered. "Logan, what are you thinking?" she called out softly. "I'm thinking," he replied, carefully testing the stability of the ground around the collapse, "that sometimes the line between predator and protector is thinner than we imagine." He began to dig, matching the wolf's earlier careful movements, mindful of the precious cargo that lay beneath. The wolf paced nearby, alternating between watching Logan's progress and pressing her ear to the ground, listening for her pups. Her anxiety was palpable, but there was something else in her demeanor now. A cautious hope that seemed to grow with each shovelful of earth Logan removed. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, Logan continued his careful excavation. The wolf's presence became a constant, her movements synchronized with his as if they were partners in this desperate rescue mission. Every so often, another weak cry would emerge from below, driving both human and wolf to work with renewed determination. Rachel had moved closer now, her initial skepticism giving way to cautious support. She set up a perimeter to ensure no curious hikers or farmers would stumble upon the scene, then began preparing supplies they might need once the den was opened: blankets, water, and basic medical supplies for the pups. The work was painstaking. One wrong move could cause further collapse, but doing nothing wasn't an option. As Logan dug, he found himself speaking softly to both the wolf and her trapped pups, words of encouragement that seemed to flow naturally despite the strangeness of the situation. The wolf's occasional whimpers became more frequent, urging him on, as if she understood that time was running out for her precious family. The forest held its breath as Logan's careful excavation continued. Each movement was calculated, precise, guided by years of experience and a newfound instinct he didn't quite understand. The wolf had settled into a pattern, alternating between pacing and pressing close to the dig site, her trust in Logan growing with each passing moment. Rachel had transformed their impromptu rescue mission into a well-organized operation. She'd set up a small staging area with emergency supplies, her ranger training kicking in, despite the unusual nature of their situation. "The sun's getting higher," she warned, wiping sweat from her brow. "Temperature's rising. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it soon." Logan nodded, never taking his eyes off his work. The den's entrance was becoming clearer now, but the complexity of the collapse was daunting. Years of hunting had taught him to read the land, to understand its moods and movements, but this was different. This wasn't about tracking or pursuing. It was about preserving life, about working with nature rather than against it. A particularly loud whimper from below made the wolf surge forward, her nose pressing against the freshly exposed earth. Logan froze, allowing her to investigate. Her behavior had shifted subtly. There was more urgency now, but also more purpose. She began digging alongside him, her powerful paws working in concert with his shovel in an unlikely partnership. "I've never seen anything like this," Rachel murmured, documenting the scene with her camera. "It's like she knows exactly what you're trying to do." The wonder in her voice echoed Logan's own amazement at the situation. The wolf's trust was a revelation. Every so often she would pause and look directly at Logan, her amber eyes holding his gaze with an intelligence that challenged everything he thought he knew about these creatures. This wasn't the calculating stare of a predator or the fearful glance of prey. It was something entirely different, something that spoke of understanding and desperation. As they worked, Logan found himself thinking about his journey to these mountains. He'd come seeking solitude, looking to escape the complexities of human society for what he thought would be a simpler life. Now, knee-deep in dirt and working alongside a wild wolf to save her pups, he realized how naive that assumption had been. The wilderness wasn't simple, it was intricate, filled with relationships and connections he was only beginning to understand. A small shift in the earth brought their work to a sudden halt. The wolf backed away, hackles raised, as a portion of the den's roof threatened to cave in. Logan's heart raced as he assessed the situation. One wrong move could undo all their progress, potentially harming the pups trapped below. "Rachel," he called out, his voice steady despite his concern. "Bring me those support beams from your truck. We need to stabilize this before we go any further." As Rachel hurried to comply, Logan kept his attention divided between the precarious Earth and the anxious mother wolf. The wolf's behavior had changed again. She was more agitated now, pacing in tight circles and occasionally pawing at the ground near Logan's feet. Her whines had taken on a new tone, not just desperate, but almost instructive, as if she was trying to tell him something specific about where to dig. "I hear you," Logan found himself whispering to her. "We're going to get them out, just a little longer." To his amazement, she seemed to calm slightly at the sound of his voice, though her eyes never left the dig site. Rachel returned with the support beams, and together they began the delicate process of shoring up the den's entrance. The wolf watched their every move, her attention particularly focused on the beams as they disappeared into the earth. Her intelligence was undeniable. She seemed to understand that these strange objects were part of the rescue effort. As they worked, Logan became increasingly aware of a change within himself. The thrill he once felt while hunting was nothing compared to the intense focus and purpose he felt now. Every movement, every decision was driven by a single goal: saving these innocent lives. The wolf's trust in him felt like both a gift and a responsibility, one he was determined to honor. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting dappled shadows through the canopy above. Time was becoming a critical factor. The pup's cries had grown weaker, more sporadic, and the mother's anxiety was increasing proportionally. Logan could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him as heavily as the earth they were trying to move. Yet there was something else growing alongside that pressure. A connection, not just to this particular wolf and her pups, but to the forest itself. Every rustle of leaves, every shift of soil seemed to carry new meaning. The wilderness, he thought he knew so well, was revealing another layer of itself, one that spoke not of conquest or survival alone, but of cooperation and understanding. The moment of truth arrived, as Logan carefully removed the final layer of soil, blocking the den's entrance. The wolf's anxiety peaked, her movements becoming more urgent as the opening gradually widened. Rachel stood ready with blankets and supplies, her ranger training keeping her focused despite the unprecedented nature of their situation. "Easy now," Logan murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. The delicate operation had taken on an almost surgical precision. Each movement could mean the difference between success and disaster. The wolf seemed to understand the gravity of the moment, her intelligent eyes fixed on Logan's hands as they worked to clear the final obstacles. The first glimpse inside the den revealed the true scope of their challenge. 3 tiny forms lay huddled in the darkness, barely moving. The mother wolf's whimpers grew more intense, but she held herself back, seemingly understanding that rushing in might cause the unstable entrance to collapse again. Logan's heart tightened at the sight. 2 of the pups were clearly conscious, though weak, their tiny bodies trembling with each shallow breath. The third showed even less movement, causing the mother to release a low, mournful sound that seemed to echo through the entire forest. "Rachel," Logan called softly, "bring the supplies closer. We need to move quickly, but carefully." He turned to the mother wolf, meeting her gaze directly. "We're going to help them," he said, knowing she couldn't understand the words, but hoping she could sense his intention. "You need to trust me a little longer." To everyone's amazement, the wolf backed up slightly, creating space for Logan to work while maintaining a clear view of her pups. This display of trust, so rare in wild animals, reinforced the extraordinary nature of their connection. Working with painstaking care, Logan began to extract the pups one by one. The first 2, though weak, responded to their mother's encouraging whines with tiny squeaks of their own. Logan handed them to Rachel, who quickly wrapped them in warm blankets, while the mother wolf divided her attention between her rescued babies and the ongoing effort to save the third. The smallest pup presented the greatest challenge. Its breathing was shallow, its tiny body cold to the touch. Logan's hands, usually so steady in the wilderness, trembled slightly as he lifted the fragile creature from its prison. The mother wolf's anxiety was palpable, her soft whines taking on a pleading quality that tugged at something deep in Logan's chest. Rachel immediately went to work, her emergency veterinary training proving invaluable. She prepared a mixture of warm water and glucose, carefully administering it to the weakest pup while Logan tended to the others. The mother wolf watched every movement, her trust in these humans seemingly growing with each passing moment. "They're severely dehydrated," Rachel assessed, her professional demeanor hiding her emotional investment in the situation. "But if we can get them stabilized and warm, they have a chance." She glanced at Logan, a question in her eyes. "We should probably take them to the wildlife center." Logan shook his head, watching the mother wolf as she gently nuzzled her recovering pups. "No," he said firmly, "they need their mother. We'll bring the care to them." The wolf's eyes met his again, and Logan could have sworn he saw gratitude in their amber depths. As the afternoon wore on, their rescue operation transformed into a makeshift field hospital. Rachel's ranger vehicle provided essential supplies, while Logan's experience with the wilderness helped them create a protected space where the family could recover. The mother wolf remained close, accepting their help with a trust that defied conventional wisdom about wild animals. The smallest pup gradually began showing signs of improvement, its tiny body responding to the warmth and care. Each positive sign was met with visible relief from both the humans and the mother wolf, creating an unexpected bond between species united in their concern for these vulnerable lives. Logan found himself thinking about the transformation taking place, not just in the pups fighting for survival, but in himself. The weapons he'd once carried into these woods seemed like relics of a different life, one that felt increasingly distant with each moment spent helping these creatures survive. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows through the trees, but no one spoke of leaving. They had crossed some invisible threshold, becoming part of something larger than themselves. The mother wolf's acceptance of their presence had transformed from desperate necessity to what seemed like genuine trust, creating a connection that challenged everything Logan thought he knew about the relationship between humans and wild animals. As they worked to ensure the pup's survival, Logan realized that this day would mark more than just a successful rescue. It was becoming a turning point, though the full significance of that change was yet to reveal itself. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how this unlikely alliance would unfold. The days following the rescue took on a rhythm of their own. Logan established a careful routine, visiting the makeshift den site at dawn and dusk, bringing supplies and monitoring the pup's progress. The mother wolf's acceptance of his presence had evolved into something that amazed even Rachel. A sort of collaborative partnership that defied conventional wisdom about wild animals. "I've never seen anything like this in all my years as a ranger," Rachel remarked one morning, watching as the wolf allowed Logan to check on her pups. The smallest one, once barely breathing, now squirmed with growing strength, though still noticeably weaker than its siblings. "She treats you like you're part of her pack." Logan carefully placed the pup back with its siblings, watching as the mother wolf gently nuzzled it. "I think she understands we're trying to help," he replied softly. "These animals are far more intelligent than most people give them credit for." The wolf raised her head at his voice, her amber eyes meeting his with that same unsettling intelligence that had first caught his attention. The makeshift camp they'd established had become a sort of neutral ground between the wild and civilized worlds. Rachel had helped set up a small shelter nearby, allowing them to monitor the family while maintaining a respectful distance. The wolf seemed to understand the boundaries, occasionally approaching their shelter when she needed something but always maintaining her wild nature. One afternoon, as Logan approached with fresh supplies, he noticed something different in the wolf's behavior. Instead of her usual cautious welcome, she seemed agitated, her attention divided between her pups and the forest beyond. Her ears were pricked forward, body tense with alertness that made Logan instantly wary. "What is it, girl?" he murmured, scanning the tree line. Years of hunting had taught him to read animal behavior, but now those same skills were being used for protection rather than pursuit. The wolf's anxiety was contagious, causing him to move closer to the den site, his senses heightened. The sound of branches breaking in the distance confirmed their concerns. The wolf gathered her pups closer, a low growl rumbling in her throat. Logan's hand instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there, another reminder of how much had changed in such a short time. Through his binoculars, Logan spotted movement. Human figures moving through the trees with the deliberate stealth of hunters. His heart rate quickened as he realized the implications. These weren't regular hikers or Forest Service personnel. Their movements spoke of different intentions. Rachel arrived for her regular check-in just as Logan was formulating a plan. He quickly briefed her on the situation, watching as her ranger training kicked in. "I'll contact the authorities," she whispered, already reaching for her radio. "But it'll take them at least an hour to get here." Logan nodded, his mind racing through options. The wolf family was still vulnerable. The pups too young to be moved quickly, the mother too protective to abandon them. The past week of building trust now seemed like preparation for this moment, though Logan couldn't have known it at the time. The wolf's behavior had shifted again. She stood at the entrance of the den, her body positioned between her pups and the potential threat, but her eyes kept returning to Logan. The trust in her gaze carried a weight that settled deep in his chest. This wasn't just about saving a few wild animals anymore. It was about honoring a connection that transcended the traditional boundaries between humans and wildlife. Rachel returned from her truck with a determined expression. "I've called it in, but we need to do something now. Those looked like illegal hunters. They've been spotted in the area before." She paused, studying Logan's face. "What are you thinking?" Logan watched as the wolf continued her vigilant guard, her maternal instincts driving her to protect her family at all costs. In that moment, he felt a profound shift in his own perspective. The forest he'd once viewed primarily as hunting grounds now revealed itself as something far more complex, a delicate web of relationships and responsibilities. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy, creating shifting patterns on the forest floor. Time seemed to slow as Logan considered their options. He'd spent years learning the secrets of these woods, understanding its paths and hiding places. Now, that knowledge needed to serve a different purpose. "We need to protect them," he said finally, his voice firm with conviction. "Not just today, but for the future. These mountains are their home as much as ours." The wolf's ears twitched at his voice, and for a moment the connection between them felt almost tangible, two protectors united in purpose. Rachel nodded, her expression showing she understood the deeper meaning in his words. This wasn't just about dealing with immediate threats, it was about reconsidering humanity's entire relationship with the wilderness. The wolf family had become a symbol of something larger, a catalyst for change that neither of them could have anticipated. Logan's mind raced with strategies as he observed the approaching hunters through his binoculars. Years of experience in these mountains had taught him every trail, every hiding spot, and every natural barrier. Now, that knowledge would serve a different purpose entirely. The mother wolf remained alert beside him, her body tense but controlled, as if she understood the delicate nature of their situation. "Rachel," he whispered, never taking his eyes off the distant figures, "we need to create a diversion, something to lead them away from this area." The ranger nodded, her training evident in her quick, efficient movements as she prepared to help. The wolf's ears twitched at their hushed conversation, her intelligent eyes moving between them and the direction of the threat. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the trees, creating a natural camouflage that Logan intended to use to their advantage. He had spent years learning how to track and pursue in these woods. Now he would use those same skills to protect and deceive. The irony wasn't lost on him. "I've got some ideas," Rachel replied, pulling equipment from her ranger vehicle. "We can use the terrain to our advantage. These slopes can carry sound in unusual ways." She paused, glancing at the wolf family. "But we need to be careful. Too much activity might spook her, and we can't risk her trying to move the pups yet." Logan watched as the mother wolf gently nudged her pups deeper into the den's safety. The smallest one, still recovering its strength, stumbled slightly, but was quickly steadied by its siblings. The scene reinforced his determination to protect them. This wasn't just about saving a few wild animals anymore. It was about preserving something fundamental about the wilderness itself. Working quickly but quietly, they began implementing their plan. Rachel set up a series of small speakers in strategic locations, ready to play recorded wolf calls that would draw attention away from the actual den site. Logan, meanwhile, began laying false trails that would lead the hunters on a wild goose chase through the more challenging parts of the terrain. The mother wolf observed their activities with remarkable calm, seeming to understand that their unusual behavior was somehow connected to protecting her family. Her trust, earned through days of careful interaction, now proved invaluable as she remained quiet and hidden, despite the increasing activity around her den. "Look at how she's responding," Rachel marveled quietly as they worked. "It's like she knows we're trying to help. I've never seen anything like this in all my years as a ranger." The wolf's behavior did seem extraordinary. She was alert, but not panicked, watchful, but not aggressive, displaying a level of understanding that challenged everything Logan thought he knew about wild animals. As they finished their preparations, Logan found himself reflecting on the transformation of his relationship with these mountains. The weapons he'd once carried now seemed like relics of a past life, replaced by tools of protection and preservation. The thrill of the hunt had given way to something deeper, a sense of responsibility to preserve the delicate balance of this wilderness. The distant sound of branches breaking brought them back to the immediate situation. The hunters were getting closer, their movements betraying their unfamiliarity with the terrain. Logan nodded to Rachel, who activated the first of their diversionary tactics. A wolf's howl echoed through the valley, perfectly mimicking the natural acoustics of the landscape. The mother wolf's ears pricked forward at the sound, but she remained calm, as if understanding it was part of their strategy. Her trust in them had grown to the point where she could distinguish between real threats and their protective deceptions. Logan felt a surge of respect for her intelligence and adaptability. From their hidden position, they watched as the hunters changed direction, following the false trail they'd created. Rachel's carefully placed speakers continued their work, creating an illusion of wolf activity in the opposite direction from the den. The strategy was working, but Logan knew they couldn't rely on these tactics forever. "We need a more permanent solution," he whispered to Rachel as they watched the hunters disappear into the distance. "These mountains are big enough for all of us, but only if we learn to respect their natural balance." The wolf turned her amber eyes toward him at the sound of his voice, and in that moment, Logan felt the full weight of his transformation from hunter to protector. The afternoon wore on as they maintained their vigilant watch. The mother wolf alternated between checking on her pups and monitoring the forest alongside Logan and Rachel. Their unlikely alliance had created something unique, a bridge between the human and wild worlds that offered hope for a different kind of relationship with nature. As twilight approached, Logan and Rachel maintained their protective vigil over the wolf family. Their successful diversion of the hunters had bought them time, but both knew this was just the beginning of a longer challenge. The mother wolf had settled back into caring for her pups. though her occasional glances toward the forest revealed she hadn't forgotten the earlier threat. "We need to think long-term," Rachel said, breaking the contemplative silence. She was reviewing maps of the area on her tablet, marking potential danger zones and safe corridors. "The pups are getting stronger, but they're still too young to travel far. And even when they can move, where can they go that's truly safe?" Logan watched as the smallest pup attempted to stand, its siblings gently nudging it along. The mother wolf's patience with her weakest offspring touched something deep within him. "Maybe the question isn't where they can go," he replied slowly, "but how we can make where they are safer." The conversation was interrupted by the mother wolf's sudden alertness. Her ears pricked forward, body tensing as she listened to something beyond human hearing. Logan and Rachel froze, years of wilderness experience telling them to trust the wolf's instincts. Moments later, they heard it too, the distant sound of vehicles approaching. "That's not Forest Service," Rachel whispered, recognizing the sound pattern. "Those are unauthorized vehicles on the fire road." The implications were clear. The hunters they'd diverted earlier might have called for reinforcements. Logan felt a surge of protective instinct that surprised him with its intensity. Just weeks ago, he had been a hunter himself, viewing these mountains primarily as a realm to be conquered. Now, watching the mother wolf gather her pups closer, he understood that he had stumbled into something far more meaningful than he'd ever imagined. Working quickly but quietly, they began enhancing their protective measures. Rachel used her ranger authority to officially mark the area as under environmental study, posting signs that would deter casual intruders. Logan, meanwhile, drew upon his intimate knowledge of the terrain to create natural barriers, carefully arranged fallen logs and branches that would make approach difficult without harming wildlife. The mother wolf observed their activities with that same remarkable intelligence that had first caught Logan's attention. She seemed to understand that their actions were protective rather than threatening, occasionally moving to check their work before returning to her pups. Her trust in them had evolved into something that defied conventional wisdom about wild animals. As they worked, Logan found himself sharing stories with Rachel about his evolution from hunter to protector. "My father taught me to hunt," he explained quietly, arranging branches to block an easy approach to the den. "He also taught me to respect the forest, but I'm only now beginning to understand what that truly means." Rachel nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Sometimes we have to unlearn things before we can see clearly," she replied. "What you're doing here, this connection you've formed with her, it's extraordinary. It's like you're bridging two worlds." The wolf raised her head at their voices, her amber eyes meeting Logan's with that uncanny perception that still took his breath away. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just about protecting one wolf family. It was about recognizing a deeper truth about humanity's relationship with the wilderness. The sound of the vehicles grew closer, then faded as they took a different turn in the road network. Logan and Rachel exchanged glances, knowing this reprieve was temporary. The mother wolf relaxed slightly, but maintained her vigilant watch, dividing her attention between her pups and the potential threats beyond. As night began to fall, they set up a small camp at a respectful distance from the den. The wolf had grown accustomed to their presence, seeming to accept them as unlikely allies in her mission to protect her family. Logan found himself marveling at how natural this arrangement felt, despite its extraordinary nature. "What made you decide to leave hunting behind?" Rachel asked softly as they monitored the area. "Even before all this, you were starting to change. I could see it in your eyes whenever we crossed paths in the forest." Logan watched as the mother wolf tenderly groomed her pups, preparing them for the night ahead. The smallest one had made remarkable progress under their care, its movements growing stronger each day. "I think I was always searching for something in these mountains," he replied thoughtfully. "I just didn't realize what it was." until now. The next morning brought new challenges as Logan and Rachel discovered fresh tire tracks near their protective perimeter. The mother wolf seemed to sense their concern, her movements becoming more cautious as she tended to her pups. The smallest one had begun to show real signs of improvement, attempting to play with its siblings, though still requiring extra attention from both its mother and their human guardians. "They're getting bolder," Rachel observed, examining the tracks with professional scrutiny. "These weren't here when I did my last patrol at midnight." She pulled out her phone, documenting the evidence for her official report. "They're testing our defenses, Logan. They know something valuable is here." Logan felt a familiar tension building in his shoulders, the kind he used to experience before a hunt, but now transformed into something entirely different. The mother wolf approached him, her steps deliberate and calm despite the situation. She stood beside him, both of them looking out at the forest that had become their shared territory to protect. "We need to think like them to stay ahead," Logan mused, his years of hunting experience providing unexpected insights into their current situation. "But we also need to think beyond them, find a way to make this entire area uninviting for illegal hunting without harming the natural balance." Rachel's Ranger radio crackled with routine morning communications, but one message caught their attention: reports of suspicious activity in adjacent sectors of the forest. The pattern was becoming clear. Their adversaries were methodically searching the area, likely aware that something had disrupted their usual hunting grounds. The mother wolf's behavior had evolved over the past days. She now actively participated in their surveillance, often alerting them to approaching wildlife or unusual sounds before they could detect them themselves. Her intelligence and adaptability continued to amaze both Logan and Rachel, challenging their preconceptions about wild animals. "Look at how she works with us," Rachel remarked, watching as the wolf moved to check another section of their perimeter. "It's like she understands we're all part of the same team now." The wolf paused, looking back at them with those knowing amber eyes before returning to her pups. Logan found himself reflecting on his journey as he watched the family interact. The smallest pup, once barely clinging to life, now wrestled playfully with its siblings, though still noticeably weaker. Its resilience mirrored something he felt growing within himself, a transformation from someone who took from the forest to someone who gave back to it. As the day progressed, they refined their security measures. Rachel used her authority to implement official protections, while Logan applied his intimate knowledge of the terrain to create natural deterrence. The wolf observed their work with apparent understanding, occasionally leading them to spots they had overlooked, her instincts complementing their human planning. "I've been thinking," Rachel said as they took a brief break, sharing a simple lunch while keeping watch. "What you're doing here, this connection you've formed, it could change how we approach wildlife conservation entirely. This isn't just about protecting one wolf family anymore." Logan nodded, understanding the broader implications of their situation. The mother wolf had settled near them, comfortable enough to nurse her pups within sight of their small camp. The trust she showed defied everything he had ever learned about wild animals, yet felt somehow natural, as if they had rediscovered an ancient partnership long forgotten. The afternoon brought new signs of encroachment, broken branches and disturbed undergrowth that spoke of human presence. The mother wolf grew more alert, but remarkably, not more aggressive. She seemed to understand that her human allies would help handle the threat, allowing her to focus on her pups' needs. "They're testing different approaches now," Logan observed, studying the signs. "But they don't understand what they're really dealing with." He smiled slightly as the wolf returned from another patrol of her territory, briefly touching her nose to his hand before checking on her pups, a gesture of trust that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. Rachel watched this interaction with wonder. "You know, when I first got the call about a wolf behaving strangely, I never imagined it would lead to this. We're witnessing something extraordinary here, Logan. Something that could change everything we think we know about coexisting with wild animals. As evening approached, they established their night watch rotation. The mother wolf had integrated herself into their routine, timing her own rest periods to complement their schedule. The pups, growing stronger each day, remained the center of their shared mission, their playful antics providing moments of joy amid the tension of their situation. The dawn brought with it a sense of unease that even the mother wolf couldn't ignore. Her movements were more purposeful than usual, her vigilance heightened as she monitored the perimeter of their protected area. Logan and Rachel exchanged concerned glances as they noticed fresh signs of human activity even closer to the den than before. "They're getting more aggressive," Rachel whispered, examining a recently disturbed area just outside their defensive line. "These tracks are from last night, after our last patrol. They're learning our patterns." The worry in her voice reflected the growing stakes of their situation. Logan watched as the mother wolf gathered her pups closer, her protective instincts clearly responding to the mounting tension. The smallest pup, though stronger now, still required extra attention, and its siblings seemed to understand this, staying close and supporting it during their play sessions. The family's bond was a powerful reminder of what they were fighting to protect. "We need to change our strategy," Logan said, his mind racing through possibilities. "We've been playing defense, but maybe it's time to be more proactive." He paused, watching as the wolf returned from another perimeter check, her intelligent eyes meeting his with what seemed like understanding. "They think they're hunting us, but they don't realize we know these mountains better than they do." Rachel pulled out her maps, spreading them across the hood of her ranger vehicle. "The problem is, they're not just random hunters anymore. These are organized people who know what they're doing. Look at how they're systematically covering the area." She pointed to various spots where they'd noticed activity. "They're using traditional hunting patterns, but with modern technology." The mother wolf's ears suddenly pricked forward, her body tensing in a way that both humans had learned to respect. Moments later they heard it too, the distant sound of ATVs approaching from multiple directions. This was different from previous encounters. This was coordinated. "They're trying to box us in," Logan realized, his former hunting experience allowing him to recognize the strategy. The wolf moved closer to him, her body language suggesting she understood the gravity of the situation. Her trust in him had evolved into something remarkable, a partnership that transcended the natural barriers between species. Working quickly but quietly, they began implementing countermeasures. Rachel used her ranger authority to call in additional patrols for the surrounding areas, while Logan employed his knowledge of the terrain to identify alternate escape routes. The wolf observed their activities with keen interest, occasionally leading them to hidden paths through the underbrush that they hadn't noticed. "Look at how she's helping us," Rachel marveled, following the wolf's guidance to a concealed passage between two rock formations. "It's like she's showing us her emergency exits." The pathway would be perfect for moving the pups if necessary, though they all hoped it wouldn't come to that. As the day progressed, the pressure mounted. The sounds of vehicles and human activity grew closer, then receded, only to approach from different directions. It was a tactical game of cat and mouse, but with the lives of the wolf family hanging in the balance, Logan found himself drawing on every bit of his hunting experience, but now using it to protect rather than pursue. The mother wolf's behavior became increasingly sophisticated. She seemed to understand the concept of creating false trails, often leading visible paths in one direction before doubling back through hidden routes to the den. Her intelligence and adaptability continued to amaze both Logan and Rachel, reinforcing their commitment to protecting her family. "We're witnessing something extraordinary here," Rachel said softly as they watched the wolf organize her pups for a possible quick evacuation. "This isn't just about saving one family anymore. This is about proving that there's another way to interact with wildlife. The smallest pup had sensed the tension in the air, staying especially close to its mother. Yet even in this stressful situation, its progress was evident. It moved with growing confidence, its siblings naturally adjusting their play to include it without overwhelming it. The family's resilience was inspiring, fueling Logan's determination to ensure their safety. As evening approached, they prepared for what they suspected would be their most challenging night yet. The mother wolf had taken to alternating her rest periods with their watch schedule, creating an almost seamless surveillance system. Her trust in them had become so complete that she would sleep while they kept watch, something unheard of in wild animals. The night air crackled with tension as Logan and Rachel maintained their vigilant watch. The mother wolf paced restlessly between her pups and the perimeter of their sanctuary, her behavior indicating she sensed the approaching confrontation. The smallest pup, though significantly stronger now, stayed close to its siblings, all of them huddled together in response to their mother's anxiety. "Something's different tonight," Rachel whispered, her ranger instincts on high alert. "The forest is too quiet." She was right. The usual nighttime chorus of wildlife had fallen silent, a sure sign that multiple human intruders were moving through the area. The mother wolf confirmed their suspicions, her ears constantly swiveling to track sounds beyond human hearing. Logan found himself unconsciously reaching for his rifle, then stopping short when he remembered it wasn't there. The gesture made him pause, reflecting on how completely his perspective had changed. The weapon that had once felt like an essential part of him now seemed as foreign as the idea of hunting itself. "They're coordinating through radio," Rachel said, her enhanced ranger equipment picking up scattered frequencies. "At least 3 groups, maybe more." She marked positions on her tactical map, creating a pattern that made Logan's heart sink. The hunters were no longer just searching, they were executing a calculated plan to surround the area. The mother wolf approached Logan, pressing close in a way that still amazed him. Her trust had evolved into something profound, a partnership that defied natural laws. She looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes, then turned to gaze into the darkness, as if sharing her knowledge of approaching dangers. "We need to move them," Logan decided, the weight of responsibility heavy in his voice. "The den isn't safe anymore." The wolf's ears pricked at his words, her body language suggesting she understood the gravity of the situation. Rachel nodded grimly, already gathering their emergency supplies. The pups had grown considerably under their care, but moving them would still be challenging. The smallest one, though remarkably recovered, might struggle with a long journey. As if reading their thoughts, the mother wolf began gently nosing her pups into a more mobile formation, her natural instincts aligning perfectly with their plans. "She's incredible," Rachel breathed, watching the wolf organize her family. "It's like she understands everything we're trying to do." The wolf's behavior had indeed become increasingly sophisticated, demonstrating an intelligence that challenged everything they thought they knew about wild animals. Logan studied the maps one last time, plotting their escape route. Years of hunting had taught him every hidden path and secret valley in these mountains, knowledge that would now serve to protect rather than pursue. The irony wasn't lost on him. Every skill he'd developed as a hunter was being repurposed for preservation. The mother wolf's sudden alertness interrupted their planning. Her body tensed, eyes fixed on the northern perimeter. Moments later, they heard it too. The subtle sound of branches being carefully moved aside. The hunters were closer than they'd thought, and moving with professional precision. "We're out of time," Rachel whispered, quickly packing away their maps. The wolf was already in motion, efficiently gathering her pups and guiding them toward the hidden escape route they'd prepared. Her actions were so perfectly coordinated with their own that it seemed almost supernatural. Logan felt a profound shift within himself as he watched the wolf family prepare to move. The man who had first come to these mountains seeking solitude and hunting trophies was gone, replaced by someone who understood a deeper truth about the relationship between humans and wildlife. The weapon mounted above his cabin fireplace now seemed like an artifact from another life entirely. The smallest pup stumbled slightly as they began their evacuation, but its siblings immediately moved to support it, displaying the kind of family cooperation that had first touched Logan's heart. The mother wolf oversaw their movement with remarkable patience, maintaining her composure despite the obvious threats closing in around them. "Logan," Rachel called softly, her voice urgent but controlled. "They're getting closer. We need to move now." She was right. The sounds of approach were becoming more distinct, and the wolf's increasing anxiety confirmed their time was running out. As they prepared to guide the wolf family to safety, Logan realized this night would mark more than just an escape. It would be the culmination of his transformation from hunter to protector, from someone who took from the forest to someone who gave back to it. The mother wolf's trust in him wasn't just a miracle of nature. It was a sign that humans and wildlife could find a better way to coexist. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Logan led the careful evacuation through the darkness. The mother wolf moved with remarkable stealth, guiding her pups along the hidden path while maintaining constant vigilance. Rachel brought up the rear, her ranger training evident in her silent, precise movements. The smallest pup, though still weaker than its siblings, showed surprising determination, keeping pace with the group. Their progress was slow but deliberate, each step calculated to avoid detection. The sounds of the hunters grew more distinct, then faded, only to reappear from different directions. Logan's intimate knowledge of the terrain proved invaluable as he led them through passages that seemed invisible until you were right upon them. "They're trying to push us toward the eastern ridge," Rachel whispered during a brief pause, her tactical assessment confirming Logan's suspicions. "They think they can trap us against the cliff face." But Logan had spent years learning these mountains' secrets, and he knew pathways the hunters couldn't imagine. The mother wolf suddenly froze, her ears swiveling toward a new sound. Logan and Rachel immediately stilled, trusting her superior senses. Moments later, they heard it too, the subtle whir of drone motors above the canopy. The hunters had brought modern technology to their pursuit. "They're more organized than we thought," Rachel muttered, her concern evident. The wolf looked at them both, her intelligent eyes seeming to understand the new threat. She quickly gathered her pups closer, using the thick undergrowth for cover. Logan's mind raced through options. His years as a hunter had taught him how to think like his opponents, but now that knowledge served a different purpose. "The old mine tunnel," he whispered to Rachel, "the one that cuts through the ridge. The drone's infrared won't penetrate that deep." The mother wolf's behavior changed subtly at his words, as if she understood their intent. She began guiding her pups toward the tunnel entrance before Logan could even point the way. Her trust in their guidance had become so complete that she seemed to read their thoughts. The tunnel entrance was barely visible, obscured by years of natural growth. Logan remembered discovering it during his first year in the mountains, back when he was still learning the territory. He'd never imagined it would become a sanctuary. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, the sounds of pursuit grew more distant. The mother wolf organized her pups in the darkness, her eyes reflecting what little light filtered in from the entrance. The smallest pup stayed close to its siblings, their family bond evident even in these tense moments. "Logan," Rachel called softly, her voice carrying a new urgency. "There's something you need to see." She was examining their map with a flashlight carefully shielded to prevent external visibility. "These hunting patterns, they're not random. They're systematic, professional. Someone's been planning this for weeks." The realization hit Logan hard. This wasn't just about opportunistic hunters. This was an organized effort to clear the area of predators. The wolf seemed to sense his distress, moving closer and pressing against his leg in what felt like a gesture of solidarity. "We can't just keep running," Logan said finally, his voice firm with conviction. "This needs to end here." The mother wolf's ears pricked forward at his tone, her body language suggesting complete alignment with his decision. She had fought too hard for her family to live in constant fear. Rachel nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You're thinking about using your old hunting skills one last time, aren't you? But this time to protect rather than pursue." The idea seemed to hang in the air between them, full of possibility and purpose. The wolf family had settled into a protected alcove of the tunnel, the pups huddled together while their mother maintained her vigilant watch. The smallest one, which had shown such remarkable recovery under their care, now demonstrated surprising strength, keeping up with its siblings despite the challenging journey. Logan watched them, feeling the weight of his transformation more profoundly than ever. The weapon he'd left hanging above his fireplace seemed like a relic from another life, a life where he had never known the deep satisfaction of protecting instead of pursuing, of nurturing instead of taking. "We need to turn their tactics against them," he said finally, years of hunting experience flowing into a new purpose. "Make them think they're the ones being hunted." The mother wolf's eyes met his, and in that moment he saw not just intelligence, but partnership, a shared commitment to protecting what mattered most. Inside the old mine tunnel, Logan outlined his plan to Rachel, while the mother wolf listened with an almost uncanny attention. The pups had settled into a protected nook, with the smallest one nestled safely among its siblings. Their trust in their human protectors had become absolute, a testament to the extraordinary bond that had formed over the past weeks. "We need to use their expectations against them," Logan explained, his voice barely above a whisper. "They think like hunters, just as I used to. They're expecting prey behavior, flight, panic, predictable patterns." The mother wolf's ears twitched at his words, her intelligent eyes fixed on his face, as if understanding every word. Rachel nodded, spreading their tactical map across a flat rock. "They've been herding us toward their chosen ground," she observed, "but they don't know these mountains like you do, Logan. And they certainly don't expect this level of coordination with a wild wolf." The mother wolf suddenly stood, moving to the tunnel entrance with purposeful steps. She paused, looking back at Logan with what seemed like an invitation to follow. Her behavior had evolved far beyond what anyone might expect from a wild animal. She had become a true partner in their resistance. "She wants to show us something," Logan realized, following her lead while Rachel stayed with the pups. The wolf led him to a vantage point just outside the tunnel, where the pre-dawn light revealed the valley below. From this position, they could see the hunters' movements without being spotted. The systematic pattern of the search parties became clear from their elevated perspective. The hunters were using traditional techniques, but with modern technology, drones for aerial surveillance, thermal imaging for night vision, and radio coordination to maintain their perimeter. "They're good," Logan admitted, watching their methodical approach. "But they're thinking like hunters, facing ordinary prey. They don't realize we're thinking 10 steps ahead." The wolf pressed against his leg, her presence a reminder of how far they'd come from their first encounter. Returning to the tunnel, Logan and the wolf found Rachel had organized their supplies and prepared the pups for possible movement. The smallest one had grown remarkably stronger under their care, but they still needed to be cautious about its stamina. "We can use the terrain to our advantage," Logan explained, pointing to specific locations on the map. "These ridges create natural echo chambers. With the right setup, we can make them think our group is moving in multiple directions at once." The mother wolf's attention remained fixed on their planning, her intelligence continuing to amaze them. Rachel added her ranger expertise to the strategy. "I've called in support from neighboring districts, but they're hours away. We need to handle this ourselves until they arrive." She paused, studying the wolf family. The question is, can the pups handle what we're planning? As if in response, the mother wolf moved to her pups, efficiently organizing them into a more mobile formation. The smallest one took its place without hesitation, showing surprising strength and determination. Their family bond had only grown stronger through adversity. "Look at that," Rachel whispered, watching the wolf family's coordinated movement. "She understands exactly what we need to do." The wolf's behavior had indeed become increasingly sophisticated, demonstrating an intelligence that challenged everything they thought they knew about wild animals. Logan felt a profound sense of purpose as they finalized their plan. The man who had come to these mountains seeking solitude and hunting trophies was gone, replaced by someone who understood a deeper truth about humanity's relationship with nature. The mother wolf's trust wasn't just a miracle, it was a model for a new way of coexisting with wildlife. "We'll need to move fast and coordinate perfectly," Logan said, checking their supplies one last time. "But we have something they don't expect. A partner who knows these mountains as well as I do, and who has every reason to fight for her family's future." The wolf's ears pricked forward at his words, her body language showing complete alignment with their purpose. She had fought too hard for her family to back down now, and her trust in Logan and Rachel had become absolute. Together, they represented something unprecedented, a partnership between species united in protection rather than conflict. As the first light of dawn began to filter into the tunnel, they made their final preparations. The mother wolf gathered her pups while Logan and Rachel readied their countermeasures. The smallest pup stood strong with its siblings, a living symbol of the resilience they had fostered together. The dawn light painted the forest in shades of gold as Logan and Rachel put their plan into action. The mother wolf moved with calculated precision, leading her pups through hidden paths while maintaining perfect coordination with her human allies. The smallest pup, now stronger than ever, kept pace with its siblings, their family unit moving as one through the shadowed undergrowth. "They're converging on the eastern ridge," Rachel whispered, monitoring the hunters' radio frequencies. "Just as we predicted." Her ranger equipment had proven invaluable in tracking their opponent's movements, allowing them to stay one step ahead. Logan nodded, watching as the mother wolf positioned her family in a natural hollow he'd shown her, a spot invisible from both ground level and aerial surveillance. The wolf's ability to understand and execute complex strategies had transcended anything they could have imagined when this journey began. "Ready?" he asked Rachel, though his eyes were on the wolf. She met his gaze with that same intelligent look that had first captured his attention, seeming to convey both trust and determination. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about establishing a new order in these mountains. Their countermeasures began with simple but effective tactics. Rachel activated recordings of wolf calls from multiple locations, while Logan used his intimate knowledge of the terrain to create false trails leading in various directions. The mother wolf, understanding their strategy, added her own touches, carefully placed paw prints and strategic markings that would draw attention away from her family's true location. "They're starting to look confused," Rachel reported, monitoring the hunters' communications. "Their formation is breaking up." The wolf's ears pricked forward at this news, her body language showing she understood the significance of their success. Logan had positioned natural barriers along certain paths, subtly forcing the hunters to cluster in predictable locations. It was a technique he'd learned years ago while tracking elk, now repurposed to protect rather than pursue. The irony of using his hunting skills this way wasn't lost on him. The mother wolf suddenly tensed, her attention focused on something beyond human perception. Moments later, they heard it too, the whir of drone rotors approaching their position, but they were ready. The natural cave system they'd chosen offered perfect shelter from aerial surveillance, while giving them multiple escape routes if needed. "Look at how she's keeping them calm," Rachel whispered, watching as the mother wolf organized her pups in response to the approaching threat. The smallest one, once so fragile, now showed remarkable composure, following its mother's lead without hesitation. Logan felt a surge of pride watching their coordination. The wolf family had become more than just creatures to protect. They were partners in something unprecedented, a demonstration of how humans and wildlife could work together when they chose understanding over conflict. The hunters' frustration became evident in their radio chatter. Their carefully planned operation was unraveling as they found themselves led in circles, following false trails and phantom sounds. The wolf's natural instincts, combined with Logan and Rachel's strategic planning, had transformed the hunters into the hunted. "They're starting to pull back," Rachel announced, a note of triumph in her voice. "Their thermal imaging is useless in this terrain, and they're burning through their drone batteries with nothing to show for it." The mother wolf's posture changed subtly at these words, as if she too understood that the tide had turned. She moved to check on each of her pups, her movements relaxed but still vigilant. The smallest one received an extra nuzzle of attention, a reminder of how far they'd all come together. Logan watched this family interaction with a profound sense of transformation. The weapon that had once seemed so essential to his life in these mountains now felt like a relic of misunderstanding. He had found something far more valuable than any trophy, a deep connection with the wilderness that could only come through protection and respect. "We're getting reports of Forest Service reinforcements approaching from the north," Rachel said, checking her official channels. "They'll be here within the hour?" The wolf's ears twitched at this news, her body language suggesting she understood they were close to victory. The morning sun had fully risen now, illuminating their position in the cave system. The mother wolf stood at the entrance, her proud silhouette a testament to her strength and resilience. Behind her, her pups played quietly in the safety of their shelter, the smallest one now indistinguishable from its siblings in their confident movements. The Forest Service's arrival marked the end of the hunters' campaign. As the illegal hunting party retreated from the area, Logan, Rachel, and their extraordinary wolf ally maintained their vigilant watch. The mother wolf stood proudly at the cave entrance, her family safe behind her, while her human partners ensured the threat had truly passed. "It's over," Rachel confirmed, listening to her official radio channels. "They're being intercepted on the North Road." The wolf's posture relaxed slightly at Rachel's calm tone, her intelligence once again showing in her ability to read human cues. The pups, sensing the change in atmosphere, began to play more freely in their protected space. Logan watched the family interaction with a profound sense of transformation. The smallest pup, once struggling for survival, now wrestled confidently with its siblings. Its recovery wasn't just a testament to their care, but a symbol of everything they'd accomplished together. "We need to establish permanent protection for this area," Rachel said, already working on her official report. "What we've witnessed here changes everything we thought we knew about wildlife cooperation." She paused, watching as the mother wolf efficiently organized her pups for their return journey. "This goes beyond conservation. It's about coexistence." The wolf's behavior continued to amaze them. She led her family out of the cave with calculated precision, pausing to check their original den site before guiding them to a new location she'd clearly scouted during their time together. Her tactical intelligence matched anything Logan had seen in his years of hunting. "She's not just surviving now," Logan observed, following at a respectful distance. "She's thriving, adapting, teaching her pups how to live alongside us." The wolf paused at his voice, turning to meet his gaze with those intelligent amber eyes that had first captured his attention what seemed like a lifetime ago. The return to their original territory felt like a victory parade. The wolf family moved with confidence, the pups exploring under their mother's watchful eye, while Logan and Rachel ensured their path remained clear. The smallest pup, particularly, showed remarkable progress, keeping pace with its siblings without hesitation. At the site of their first encounter, where Logan had found the wolf desperately digging to save her trapped pups, they paused. The mother wolf surveyed the area, then looked at Logan with what could only be described as recognition. This was where everything had changed, for all of them. "Look at her," Rachel whispered, watching as the wolf guided her family to a new den site, one that offered better protection and easier escape routes. "She's taken everything we've taught her and made it her own." The wolf's selection of the location showed she'd learned from their recent experience, choosing a spot that incorporated both natural and human-provided security. Logan felt the weight of his transformation as he watched the family settle into their new home. The rifle above his fireplace at the cabin now seemed like an artifact from another life, a reminder of how far he'd come from being a hunter to becoming a protector of these mountains. "We've all changed," he said quietly, observing as the mother wolf organized her pups in their new den. "But maybe this is who we were always meant to be." The wolf raised her head at his words, her gaze holding his for a moment that seemed to bridge the gap between their species. As the day drew to a close, Logan and Rachel prepared to leave the family in their new home. The wolf watched them with calm assurance, no longer the desperate mother they'd first encountered, but a confident guardian who had found unexpected allies in her human neighbors. "We'll monitor the area," Rachel assured Logan, though they both knew it was unnecessary. The mother wolf had proven more than capable of protecting her family, and now she had the added security of official Forest Service protection. The smallest pup, once barely clinging to life, now stood confidently at the den entrance beside its mother. Its journey from fragile survivor to strong family member paralleled Logan's own transformation from hunter to protector. Both had found strength they never knew they possessed. Logan took one last look at the wolf family before departing. The mother wolf met his gaze one final time, and in that moment, he understood that their connection had changed, not just their lives, but the very nature of how humans and wildlife could interact. This wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. Dear listeners, we hope the extraordinary journey of Logan and the wolf family has touched your hearts as deeply as it has transformed their lives. This tale of transformation, trust, and protection reminds us that the most powerful changes often come from unexpected connections. To continue exploring such remarkable stories of human-wildlife cooperation, we've prepared a special playlist of equally compelling narratives. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If this story has moved you, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring you unique stories that explore the deep connections possible between humans and wildlife. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story of transformation has affected you. Remember, in nature, every ending is just a new beginning. Join us tomorrow for another extraordinary tale of discovery and connection. Until then, may we all find the courage to transform from hunters into protectors of our precious wild spaces.